When his girlfriend brought him to her house for the first time, he saw her mother and couldn't control himself. He wanted to test her because she was even more beautiful than her own daughter. After 3 days, he seduced his own girlfriend's mother, and they continuously enjoyed themselves in the toilet, the library, the elevator, and in bed all night long. The story was begun in 2010 in Miami. Near Inter Miami, far away from the noisy beaches and bright hotels, there was a small, forgotten town where nights stayed longer than days. At 2:17 a.m., under weak streetlights and moving shadows, a young woman walked alone on the empty road. Her name was Jasmin. She was 21, beautiful in a painful way, the kind of beauty that looked fragile even before life touched it. Blood covered her clothes like dark paint that refused to dry, and deep wounds on her back looked as if stones had been thrown at her with hate instead of hands. Her lips were broken from thirst, her breathing uneven, her fingers shaking as if her body no longer trusted itself. Her stomach was heavy, unnaturally heavy, moving slowly like something inside her was counting time differently from the world. She felt hunted, not by one person, but by a memory that had learned how to walk behind her. Turning back was impossible because every step behind her carried screams that never received help. When she finally reached the last house of the town and knocked on the weak wooden door, her strength collapsed into silence. An old woman opened the door, fear filling her eyes before mercy pushed it away, and she pulled Jasmin inside without asking questions that pain had already answered. Fever burned through Jasmin's body, her voice broke into short cries, and before the night could fade, blood returned again, fresh and unstoppable, announcing a birth that had no patience to wait. In her shaking eyes lived the story of a girl who grew up without parents, without protection, cleaning hotel toilets for bread, sleeping in a house villagers called cursed, a girl people ignored when masked men visited her darkness, a girl who slowly stopped praying because heaven never replied. She had learned pain as language, fire as teacher, poison as promise, and the Black River as a door that refused to close. Now in this small house near Inter Miami, the past was breathing inside her, preparing to enter the world again. Before the sky could change color, the child arrived, but no sound followed it, no cry, no weak breath, only a silence that pressed against the walls like heavy water. The baby opened its eyes, black and endless, not reflecting light but swallowing it, and for a moment the room felt like it had forgotten how to exist. Those eyes moved first to Jasmin, then to the old woman, and their bodies fell as if life had simply stepped out of them without asking permission. The newborn did not remain small. Its bones cracked softly, its skin stretched and reshaped, its body growing with unnatural patience, until a young man stood where a child had been, tall, strong, beautiful, in a way that felt wrong, like a perfect mirror hiding a broken world behind it. He breathed slowly, learning the air, learning gravity, learning the silence created by death. Inside him lived every night Jasmin had survived, every locked door, every unanswered scream, every shadow that touched her when nobody looked. He understood what he was without being told, not fully human, not fully something else, but a result of pain that had studied how to become alive. He walked out of the house while the town slept, passing walls like memories, stepping into the road as the first lines of sunrise reached the sky, already moving toward the distant lights of Inter Miami, where people would see only his face and never the history carved behind it. He did not need weapons because his hunger was quieter than violence. He would not cut bodies. He would enter hearts. In a public garden filled with soft music and careless laughter, he saw Mirgan for the first time, standing among flowers as if the world had decided to protect at least one innocent thing. She was 18, her smile untouched by fear, her movements light, her eyes carrying simple dreams that did not yet know the language of survival. He watched her like a story watching its ending, then slowly stepped closer, speaking gently, letting his voice sound human, letting his face do most of the work. She refused him twice, politely, honestly, without suspicion, because danger rarely looks beautiful at first meeting. On the third day he said nothing, only looked at her, and in that silence something crossed from his darkness into her thoughts. That night she dreamed of him, not as a stranger but as someone her mind already trusted, someone who spoke her name like it belonged to him. The dreams returned again and again, quietly replacing her routines, slowly pulling her attention away from friends, from streets, from ordinary life, until her world narrowed into a single direction where he always waited. When they finally walked together, she felt protected, chosen, special, unaware that invisible chains were learning the shape of her emotions. He never rushed, never forced, never showed hunger with his hands. He touched her mind instead, gently rearranging her feelings until love became a door he could open whenever he wished. She told him the world looked different around him, brighter, deeper, unreal. He smiled, knowing hunger does not end with one heart. Mirgan brought him home one evening as if bringing sunlight into a tired house, and her mother opened the door with the quiet politeness of a woman who had learned to live with absence. Years had shaped her into someone soft and lonely, someone who spoke to silence more than to people. He saw her and understood another door was waiting. Coffee in the garden became routine, simple conversations growing slowly into something heavier, something that stayed awake even after night arrived. Dreams visited her, always with his face standing near her bed, never touching, never leaving, filling her heart with confusion that felt like guilt and attraction, learning to share the same space. Days passed, her strength weakened, her voice grew distant, and Mirgan began to sense a shadow moving inside her own home. One night she returned earlier than expected and saw what innocence was never supposed to recognize, heard breathing where truth should not exist, felt her world crack open in silence. He stood there calm, beautiful, empty, raising his hand as darkness gathered around his fingers, ready to erase memory again. But he did not notice the quiet resistance behind trembling eyes. The mother had already visited a church, already listened to an old priest who spoke of children born from curses, of souls shaped by violence, of love used as a blade. Hidden beneath her shaking hand waited a small silver cross and a knife filled with borrowed faith. Night returned slowly, wrapping the house in a silence that felt heavier than fear. He walked into her room without hurry, the air thick around him, time bending as if unsure how to move forward. He leaned closer, certain of control, certain of hunger's victory, while her eyes closed as if surrender had finally learned how to breathe. Then her hand moved, steady where her heart was not, and silver light cut through darkness. The knife entered his eye not like flesh, but like smoke breaking, releasing a wind that had never learned how to scream. Shadows poured from his body, his face aging backward through stolen years, beauty collapsing into dust that touched the floor like quiet snow. Mirgan ran inside and found only her mother on her knees, an empty space where a story had pretended to be human. The police never found a body, the town forgot, and Into Miami continued shining like nothing had happened. Months later, mother and daughter left the city, carrying silence instead of memories. But sometimes in empty streets when the wind changed direction, strangers felt cold for no reason, as if something unfinished was breathing again, in rivers, in shadows, in forgotten houses. Revenge had not died. It had only learned how to sleep.